Do I need a spare computer? Hi, everyone. Leo Notenboom here for askleo.com. An interesting question. Here's how it came in. Should an old man who lives alone and is pretty much housebound have a second backup computer? Old people tend to feel insecure, and I like having redundancy. And everybody is today tied to the internet these days for Uber cars, online banking, Amazon shopping, license renewals, tax payments, etc. What if one's computer fails to such a person? Please comment and advise. You know that I'm all about backups, but there's really no single, I'll call it a great answer to this question, other than what I would consider probably my most common answer, which is, of course, it depends. There are two things I want you to think about: the alternatives you might already have, and the actual impact for you of not having a computer at all. As you point out, we are tied to our computers. It's not so much the internet anymore as it is all the things happening online that, honestly, we now take for granted. A few things that disappear or at least become more difficult should your computer fail include things like communicating with friends and family, be it via email or video calls or other technologies. Telehealth opportunities. A wide variety of remote medical and mental health services now are common online. Delivery services for groceries and meals, particularly for the housebound, these can be really important lifelines. Entertainment, research, news, and more. The underlying concept is increased isolation and the stress of being cut off. Understanding your alternatives can be a very important part of your peace of mind. That means you should consider either a backup computer or having a backup plan for what you might do without one. Now, before we decide on a second computer, it's really worth exploring the alternatives that you might already have available to you. They'll range, of course, in capability and in convenience, but they could come in handy in a pinch. Friends or family are my go-to, particularly your younger family members. They may already have spare or perhaps less used computers that they could part with for you to use. This could be a really quick solution that could gain you some time to make more permanent plans. Libraries and senior centers. These facilities often have computers available for public use. Clearly not as convenient, as you'd have to go there, and you may be limited in how long you can use them since they're being shared with others. Computer repair facilities. Now, while it's not common, it's not unheard of for computer repair shops, particularly the more local independent operators, to sometimes have loaners available. If your primary computer fails, you may be able to borrow something while it's being fixed. Computer stores. Here in the United States and likely elsewhere, Costco comes to mind quickly as a location where you can walk in, buy a computer, and take it home, right there when you need it. Any retailer that can provide something same day could be a viable safety net without actually needing to purchase anything beforehand. Now, your mobile device, believe it or not, is also part of this thought process. If you've got a smartphone or a tablet, it's quite possible that that could be enough to tide you over, at least for many of your more common tasks like email or some basic web surfing. All of these options and others rely on there being some amount of flexibility in your situation. Now, if you feel like losing access to your computer would only be an inconvenience, these alternatives that I've just mentioned might well be enough. But what if it's more than an inconvenience? What if you really do need access immediately, or at least with very little delay after some kind of a failure? Then having a spare might make sense. For example, yeah, I have backup computers, plural. This is my business after all. One, of course, is my laptop, which I sometimes refer to as askleo World Headquarters when I travel. Since it's capable in its own right, it would work as an instant, albeit temporary, replacement for my desktop should that suddenly fail. Now, the other less obvious scenario is this one. It really would just be an inconvenience, but there are no practical alternatives. If there are no alternatives to be had in a reasonable amount of time, whatever that might mean for you, then even an inconvenience might be too much to deal with if it extends long enough. Now, pragmatically, it's often actually pretty easy to have a backup computer. Just keep your old one when it comes time to replace it. I do this and refer to it as my trickle-down approach to hardware obsolescence. Assuming it's functional, your older, previous computer can often serve as a temporary replacement should something happen to its replacement. If it's not functional, well, then it might make sense to have it repaired if that turns out to be cost-effective. Of course, if you're not at the point of replacing your computer because it's working just fine, then realizing you really do want a backup computer could serve as your excuse to get an additional brand new one anyway. Now, there are two types of backup computer that I want you to think about. I'll call them cold and warm backups. A cold backup is a computer that is just stored somewhere. Maybe it's in your closet and you never touch it until you need it. When the time comes, you bring it out, hook it up, turn it on, hope it works, and then spend some time bringing it up to date and up to speed for whatever your needs happen to be. A warm backup is one that's connected and more or less ready to go. You might fire it up on occasion to make sure it's working and that the software on it is appropriately up to date. If you have tools that synchronize, for example, your browser syncing accounts, or your OneDrive Dropbox tools, or your password vault, this is a great time to make sure that the data they all manage is up to date as well. You certainly don't need to keep it running all the time, or even often. Just fire it up once in a while. Now, one thing that's worth remembering, at least, is that everything you've stored in the cloud will be available to you regardless of what happens to your computer, or what computer you happen to use. Email is already a great example. If you're using online services like Gmail or Outlook.com or Yahoo Mail or others, it's all there, online, as soon as you sign in, regardless of where you sign in from. Similarly, services like OneDrive, Dropbox, Google Drive, they make sure you can access your documents from any computer you happen to use. And of course, password managers like Bitwarden or 1Password maintain your credentials and can let you log into important services from a borrowed or replacement machine. Now, one common objection to having a spare computer is cost. I get it. But here's the thing. As a temporary replacement, it doesn't have to be high-end. Keeping your old computer, for example, will likely feel somewhat underpowered if you press it back into service, but it'll work, and it won't cost you extra. The same is really true for any replacement computer you might look into. If you're specifically looking to get a machine to be a backup, consider a second-hand machine or machines with lower specifications than you would get if you were purchasing a new primary machine. It's possible that a less expensive Chromebook, for example, might tide you over if your needs are primarily online or primarily in the Google ecosystem. Bottom line here, simple rule of thumb, keep your old computer when you replace it, just in case. But beyond that, understanding what your needs truly are and what alternatives you may already have is the best preparation of all. For updates, for comments, for links related to this topic and more, visit askleo.com/183029. I'm Leo Notenboom, and this is askleo.com. Thanks for watching.